What's up guys, today we will be analyzing Intel's latest CPU launch. Two new processors, the Core Ultra 7 270K Plus, which has a $300 MSRP, and the Core Ultra 5 250K Plus, which goes for $200, with both available in stores Thursday, March 26th. This has been a sort of a weird launch, but mostly in good ways, because these CPUs are based on pretty much the same Arrow Lake architecture as the rest of the Core Ultra series that launched in late 2024. When Intel has debuted a refresh like this in the past, it has typically been an underwhelming addition of a handful of CPUs clocked 1 to 300 MHz faster than the originals, but this time around they've added cores, lowered prices, and increased the interconnect speed between the chiplets under the hood to make the 270K and particularly the 250K much more compelling values in a time when the terms PC hardware and good deal are as compatible as oil and water. So today I'll be comparing test results from a variety of launch day reviews, supplemented by some testing of my own, to determine if the 250K and 270K Plus have finally made the LGA 1851 platform a worthwhile investment, or if it's too little, too late.
Excellent!
Today's video is brought to you by the Paul's Hardware store on paulshardware.net, the only official source for Paul's Hardware merchandise, tantalizing t-shirts, brilliant beer sets, high-quality hoodies, and more, all featuring the classic thumbscrew for tasteful and refined viewers, or the 8-bit thumbscrew for tasteful and refined viewers who hate curves. New designs are added sporadically and at random, so head over to paulshardware.net and get some of that sweet, sweet merch right now. Or not right now, after you watch the video. Either way.
Okay, I've organized this video around 4 pertinent questions about these CPUs, so feel free to use the timestamps to jump ahead. But let's start here. What AMD CPUs do the 250K and 270K compete with? The short answer comes from Intel's slide, comparing the $300 270K to AMD's Ryzen 7 9700X, which typically goes for the same price, and the $200 250K to the usually $200 9600X, and if nothing else, we can all be glad of competition driving down prices, because the 9600X has already dropped to $182 this week, but in terms of performance, especially if you're focused on productivity numbers, these two CPUs compete with the next tier up processors, at least from the Ryzen lineup. Computerbase's performance rating GeoMean puts the 270K Plus ahead of the Ryzen 9950X and X3D, and the 250K Plus outperforms all the Ryzen 8-core CPUs and is quite close to their 12 cores. When you compare to Intel's previous Core 200S non-Plus CPUs, it can actually get a bit confusing, as the 270K Plus actually has the same P-core and E-core configuration as the previous flagship 285K processor, which costs almost twice as much, 8 P-cores plus 16 E-cores for 24 cores and threads total, since Intel has done away with hyper-threading, unlike AMD. The 250K can also land out of order in the Intel stack now with its 6 plus 12 configuration. That can sometimes outpunch the 265K, which has 8 P-cores and 12 E-cores. Effectively, Intel has killed the appeal of the 285K and the 265K with this launch, barring huge price cuts on those chips, but since those processors had quite limited appeal in the first place, it wasn't really very hard to do. AMD's 9600X and 9700X would also seem to be quite trounced by these new Intel CPUs, as long as gaming performance isn't still a problem. So, did Intel fix gaming performance? Well, they have made big improvements, and it seems like for gaming, much of that can be attributed to the 900 MHz boost to the die-to-die interconnect frequency that improved latency, which is crucial for gaming. Summarizing a bunch of gaming tests again, the 250K and 270K both typically outperform the 14900K now, which was a bare minimum bar for Intel to pass, but that puts them comfortably similar to or ahead of AMD's Ryzen gaming performance for non-X3D chips like the 9700X. AMD still has a substantial lead in gaming with their higher-end X3D CPUs like the 7800X3D and 9800X3D. Intel probably won't be assailing those processors until they launch next-gen Nova Lake later this year, which is expected to have significantly more cache, similar to AMD's 3D V-cache. But those AMD X3D CPUs still command a price premium, typically at least $100 more than the 270K, although the 7800 X3D also seems to be dropping in price, coincidentally timed alongside this Intel launch. But even if the 7800 X3D came all the way down to like $300, both the 250K and 270K are still significantly faster for productivity. So it would become a choice between gaming with the 7800 X3D and productivity with the 270K in that case. I think the most appealing part of this launch for me though, given Intel's previous alignment of their product stack, is that their best gaming CPU is no longer also the most expensive one that costs $500 to $600, like with the 14900K. Intel has been, and in some ways still is, somewhat notorious for forcing buyers to upgrade to get things like overclocking support or peak gaming output, but given the popularity of middle-tier chips like AMD's 7800X3D or the 9800X3D, Intel needed a solution for gaming-focused customers that didn't require you to pay for the CPU at the top of the stack. So the next question is, what changes did Intel make to boost their performance? Looking specifically at Intel 250K and 270K benchmarks compared to their previous Core Ultra CPUs, many reviewers have said, Intel, this is what you needed to do with the Core Ultra series in the first place. For 18 months or so, the OG Core Ultras have been languishing due mainly to their weak gaming performance. So given that there's no major architecture changes, what did Intel actually change to drastically improve the appeal of the 250K and 270K? Well, there's the prices, of course. Do not underestimate how significantly it can impact reviews to be looking at a processor in a lower price band than expected. But there's also the die-to-die frequency boost, as mentioned, going from 2.1 GHz to 3 GHz, and interestingly, that was actually already available via Core 200S boost on chips like the 285K and 265K, but it was more of an overclocking feature that you had to turn on versus being out-of-the-box performance, so it was often overlooked. There's also the memory frequency boost with baseline support for 7200 megatransfers per second DDR5, although that does require CU DIMMs or clock unbuffered DIMMs. And given RAM prices, as we'll come back to, that has the potential to seriously increase the cost of a 250K or 270K based PC. There are also, of course, modest bumps to things like E-core frequency, and finally there's software optimization in the form of APO, or Intel Application Optimization, though that's only currently supported by 21 game titles, and the newly introduced iBot, or Intel Binary Optimization tool that functions as sort of a translation layer for applications and games to optimize instructions and fix inefficiencies in the code that might result in cache misses or branch mispredictions. Pretty cool in theory, and in practice it can boost performance in some games by as much as 22%, but on the downside it is only supported by 12 games right now. It is an opt-in enhancement that you need to turn on to take advantage of, and there are some questions about security, particularly for multiplayer games since the tool modifies running code. But that brings us to our final question. If you're in the market for a new PC, particularly for a crossover gaming and getting work done system while also not breaking the bank with a $400 plus CPU, why would you not want to get a 250K or 270K? There are two main detractors. First, the specter of DDR5 pricing, because due to the ongoing memory shortage, even a baseline 32GB DDR5 memory kit you'd need to pair with one of these CPUs will probably cost you $400 plus in the current market, and even more than that if you want a premium high-speed CU DIMM solution, so your memory will cost more than either of these CPUs by itself. That's a tough pill to swallow, but to be fair, it's also a deterrent that applies to AMD AM5 builds right now. The other downside though is an upgrade path, which does exist on the AMD AM5 side. X3D CPUs or the expected next-gen Ryzen CPUs based on Zen 6, which will likely also launch later this year, give AMD the win if you're looking for a longer-lived system that you might upgrade in the future. Intel's current LGA 1851 platform is expected to be replaced by LGA 1954 when Nova Lake launches later this year, so the 270K seems likely to be the best CPU to come out that can slot into a currently available Intel motherboard. This will probably be more of a consideration for some than others, depending on how often you upgrade your PC, but now that the Arrow Lake refresh has launched, every day that passes makes it a bit less appealing from a forward-looking perspective as Nova Lake and Zen 6 get closer. But that is all the time I have for this one, you guys. Overall, Intel has done what many thought would not be possible with the Arrow Lake refresh. At minimum, they've made us pause and think rather than writing the launch off completely from the get-go, and I'd say beyond that, they've infused a much-needed jolt of competition into the CPU space that many weren't expecting. Even if you're still planning an AM5 build, you'll likely have some better priced options available now thanks to Intel, and I'm sure there are plenty of prospective buyers who've decided to go ahead with a 250K or 270K build now rather than waiting to see if PC hardware prices get even worse as 2026 progresses. Personally, the most exciting thing I got from the 250K and 270K launch, apart from a solid $200 CPU to recommend for the time being, is a bit more hope for Nova Lake and Intel's next-gen platform. I truly hope they continue with the more gamer and consumer-focused messaging that they've been pushing out lately, aggressive pricing as well, and their push to regain Intel's status as a competitive and viable option versus AMD for all home compute tasks, whether your focus is gaming or productivity. Thanks for watching this video, you guys. Links to all the excellent reviews I referenced are down in the description. And don't forget to check out my store at paulshardware.net for high-quality merchandise, t-shirts, hoodies, beer sets, and more. Subscribe as well if you're not already, and we'll see you all in the next video.